Alright, here we go. Nervous as heck about this, but we're gonna give her the old college try. I can't remember if I have to have the clutch pulled in. As you can see, I don't know where my clutch is. So I hope I don't have to have it right now. There we go, baby. I'm gonna probably make a couple times because I just put fuel in a new tank. I don't know if I even have to do this, but make sure all the connections are hooked up right. These ones are just gonna be vacuum lines here, but mainly that guy right there. If I can, that guy. I'll make sure that's not leaking. We're good. Alright, I'm gonna try and do this here. Oh! Oh! Okay, moment of truth. Does it work? Fuck. I already smell warm things. I don't know what's freaking so hot right now though. I'm pretty sure I'm just smelling a bunch of hair burning since I have 4 cats. And yeah, everything else seems to be smooth so far. I'm really disappointed in that light. The high beam not working. That's the whole reason I did all of that work right there. So at this point I'm gonna have to figure out if it is a switch or I have a feeling it's probably the switch wire. Sounds healthy. Alright, so I just ran into a problem here with this bracket that wants to go right up there between this guy and that guy, and because I have the cock stent cage, that is not going to fly no matter how I do this, because I'm about that far away and I don't have that width in here. So what I was thinking is lining that up there. If I can maybe chop a little off here or bend it up, bend it about here 80 degrees, bend it back here, so that way it kind of pulls it back this piece kind of where it needs to be and angles it back forward. It might not be perfectly lined up in the end, but that might just work. Alright, so this is not the right way to do this, but I'm kind of a believer in doing what works sometimes instead of taking the 20 times harder route. As long as it's functional and it looks good. I gotta say, I do love the look of zip ties on my stuff because, I don't know, a little bit of a street kid in me, I guess. I should be doing this completely all the way off because this might mess up the torque on the case, the cover. But I'm just gonna try it anyway. I already did this on the pan and it did start leaking a little bit. That's tight and tight. Okay, so this piece here's cracked. So I've marked it up where we're going to drill and Dremel it out so I can fit my cluster through there. We're going to plastic weld that, and I think that's it for now on this. We'll see when I get back. So this here is the new cluster in the new cluster mount, or sorry, the old cluster in the new cluster mount. I was originally just going to use these screws, and you can see I already kind of butchered this. I was going to put some holes in this guy and just screw it in, but when I placed it all the way flat down with this part here touching, it doesn't quite give me a crystal clear view of the cluster, so I wanted to angle it up just a little bit. Yeah, it's not coming off, just like my cages. Alright, so I'm going to do my best here. And I've already done a lot of this work to just kind of show and explain what's going on here. Alright, so you can see that back here, these guys here are part of the ignition wires that I decided to run behind the head mount. We then wired in the, as you can see here, that little red wire was the headlight, coming out of the headlight relay into the headlight positive into the relay for the headlight swap. The rest of this obviously just the original wiring harness that I basically ran up into the fairing front stay up in here. This is where we have our relays, our connectors, and everything else just kind of stored in there. Had to zip tie it onto this guy here to get it to stay up in place, running it down, and then also zip tying down there to keep that in place, so that way I had plenty of room for the bars to clear, or the forks to clear. Original headlight plug is also in there. I could have done a much better job about cutting out some of the wires and rewiring it and having it much cleaner, but I'm ready to move on at this point. So coming out of this side, we have, I believe this is one of our main ignition wires, which I still have to clean up these three, but I'm going to group these together. So this guy is our ignition switch. This guy, I believe, is part of the this splitter itself here. Is part of what runs into my digital guard dog, so it's a digital ignition, keyless ignition, I should say. And then this right here was the ground, if you remember, that came out of the relay for the headlight. So that's going to get cleaned up over here. So down in here, and I'll show you this here in a second, but this is the daylight running, which we hooked up to the daylight running FR7 lights. The blinkers got zip tied down, and they're just going to run down to the sides. So on both sides, that's how those look, just coming out of the bottom of the harness there, zip tie and running out to the sides. Then we also have our control switch for this side. That's going to go, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to mount them up in here, left and right sides respectively, so I'll show you that here in a second. So yeah, I tried to clean it up as much as possible. I don't know how well you can tell exactly. I wanted it to be originally a lot cleaner than that. I probably honestly should have just ran it straight through right here. I think that is what that is for. It makes a lot of sense for it to be. but I didn't really want to start whacking all the wires and connectors and redoing an entire wire harness, so I just kind of made it work, and it works. So that's that. Once I got it onto the bike, I realized that it wasn't quite tilted up as much as I wanted it to be able to be clear. Instead, it was giving me kind of like a half color, and I didn't really like that. So originally, this gap on the bottom was completely removed, and it sat nice and flush in here. But in order for it to angle it up, I ended up having to essentially line up the kind of this piece on the bottom to the piece on the actual FR7 cluster. You can see that right there. I plastic welded the crap out of it with the staple plastic welder. Then went over some of that with some actual plastic and kind of melted it over to kind of seal it in place. I threw a lot of goop in here, like you can see this stuff up in here. I tried that out for the first time because I didn't want to go get some E6000, and I thought that would be pretty close. Threw the screws back in place because originally I wanted to just have them screwed into this, but it ended up not being able to fit right the way I would have wanted it angled. And we got it pretty much dead on both sides, centered up all the way around, and I believe it should be, I haven't actually tried it out yet, but angled the exact amount. So we're gonna throw this bad boy on here and see how we do. So we could cut that out there if we wanted to, but I think that works perfect. And okay, then this is the back of the front fairing stay. As you can see, should have given myself a little bit more, but I didn't want too much dangling. So went ahead and did each of the blue, or is it blue and black? I think it was the blue and black wires into each other, and then directly into the plug. So this will go underneath here, and then the plug also goes down underneath. So it all just kind of tucks in nicely.